So, I've been sitting with something lately and I just want us to talk about it. Have you ever genuinely asked yourself the question, really sat down and ask, who am I as an individual? Not your name, not your job, not what you studied in school or what you post on social media or what you do on the weekends. I mean, underneath all of that, if you strip everything externally away, who is that person? Because I asked myself the other day and I honestly could not answer it. I was trying to reach for something solid and nothing was actually landing. And then I started feeling strange about the fact that I couldn't answer it. Shouldn't I know this by now? Especially at the age that I'm currently at. And that's what made me want to talk about this today. Because I think a lot of us, we are just walking around with that exact feeling, this quiet, I don't really know who I am yet, and nobody's really saying it out loud. So let's say it. Let's actually talk about it today in today's episode. So the first section is gonna be you are not behind. This is supposed to happen. Okay, first thing, I need you to actually receive this. Don't just let it pass through your mind, actually take it in. Not having yourself figured out in your 20s is completely normal. I'm not just saying this to make you feel better, to feel like everything is good, but there's actually a psychologist named Jeffrey Annett who literally spent his career studying this exact change stage of life. He called it the emerging adulthood. And what he found out was the whole development task of you between 18 and 29 is identity exploration. You're supposed to be trying out new things, changing your mind, questioning what you were taught, testing different versions of yourself, figuring out what's actually yours versus what you absorb from other people without you even realizing it. This was always going to feel like this. That's not a flaw. That is actually part of the growing process. The problem is nobody told us that. Instead, we've got Instagram and LinkedIn making it look like everybody our age has everything already sorted out. The apartment, the career, the relationship, all of it looking effortless. And we end up making that a baseline of what people our age are actually supposed to be doing. And when your actual life is a confusing mess of, I don't really know what I want yet, and everything you're consuming is showing you people who look done, your brain jumps to think they have it figured out, and I didn't. I'm behind, and something is actually wrong with me. I'm here to let you know nothing is wrong with you. You are in the middle of a process, and the middle is actually supposed to be messy. That's how you know it is real. So, for the next section, we're going to be talking about what's actually going on underneath all of that confusion. So, let me break it down. Let me break down the reason why this specific season feels so disorienting, because I think when you see it clearly, it actually brings you some sort of relief, because in your 20s, you're basically just walking around with three different versions of yourself, and all of them are kind of competing for the lead role at the same time, and they don't always agree with each other. And that tension, even when you can name it, that is actually exhausting. So version one is who you were raised to be. This is the identity that got built before you had any say in it. Your parents' values, this will be your community definition of what success looks like, what your church said a good life looks like, your culture's expectations, all of that absorbed before you were even old enough to decide whether you agree with it or not. And most of us do carry that into adulthood, just assuming it's who we are. And then something shifts, usually in your 20s, and you start realizing that some of it is genuinely yours and some was never really yours to even begin with. And the work is actually figuring out which is which. And that's a whole process. It takes time and it's uncomfortable, but it is actually necessary. Version 2 is who you think you should be. This one is built entirely from comparison, from scrolling, from seeing what other people your age are actually doing on social media, measuring yourself against it. I should be more like that voice, or the why don't I have what they have voice, or by this age I should already voice. No, that voice that runs the background almost constantly. And this version is honestly the most damaging of the three, because you are measuring your full, unfiltered, complicated real life against somebody else's highlight reel. That comparison is rigged from the start. There is no version of it where you come out feeling okay. You will always lose. Version 3 is who you are actually becoming. So this one is really good. Let me break this down. This is the real one. This is the version that shows up in those quiet moments when nobody's watching, when you're doing something that genuinely just excites you without like caring what other people are gonna think about you. This version has opinions people may not even expect from you. It might even want things that don't really fit neatly into the life you're supposed to want. It has direction, but it's actually still forming, still soft around the edges, but feels a little bit more true than either of the first two that we talked about. Most of the confusion in your 20s comes from these three versions bumping into each other and not knowing which one to actually listen to at a particular time. And here's the thing, the work is in picking one and kind of like ignoring the rest. The work is sitting with all three, taking what's genuinely yours from what you kind of like taught or something that you learned growing up, and giving the third one time to actually form, the time it and space it actually needs for it to like take shape. That's the identity work, and it takes years, and that's okay. So the next thing we're actually going to be talking about is comparison is doing something specific to you. And I want to go a little bit like deeper on the comparison, because I think it does something really specific to your identity that we really don't talk enough in this like day and age or in this time of our lives. It's not just making you feel bad about your current circumstances, it's changing the questions you're asking yourself as well on a daily basis. Like when you see someone your age doing something that is like really impressive online, your brain doesn't process it as one carefully selected moment from the other complicated person messy life. It processes it as a baseline that this is what people your age are doing, and then it compares your whole entire reality to that one specific moment. But here's the specific damage, like you stop asking what do I actually want, and you start asking why don't I have what they have. And those are completely different questions. One is yours, one is borrowed, and one leads somewhere real. One just keeps you circling around. So next time you catch yourself in a spiral and you know when it's actually happening, take a pause, breathe, be honest with yourself. Ask, do I actually want what that person has, or I'm just looking at it long enough that I've convinced myself that I should want it? Because a lot of the time, when you actually sit with that question, the honest answer is no. Not the apartment that looks nice, but you don't actually want to live in. The relationship that looks good on camera, but you have no idea if it actually makes them happy. The job title that sounds impressive, but you don't even know the work itself, whether it feels meaningful or not. So you don't want the life. You want permission to feel like your own life is actually enough what you're currently in this specific time. And that permission doesn't come from them. You have to give it to yourself. You have to actually be honest with yourself and realize, is this what I really want? And the next thing is the identity that traps you because nobody warned you about it. Let me name some specific traps that I see people falling into with identity, because knowing the trap is the first step of actually getting out of it. Trap number one is tying your whole sense of self-belief to your productivity. When your identity lives entirely in what you're actually achieving, what you're producing, what you're getting done, it's an unstable foundation. Your productivity fluctuates. Some weeks are great, some weeks life happen, and sometimes they're not. If who you are depends on what you're outputting, you're always going to feel like you are not enough on a regular basis. Trap number two is building your identity around a relationship. This one is really tricky. because this one shows up a lot in your 20s. You start to define yourself by who you are with, what you mean to that person, what role you play in their life. And then when that relationship shifts or ends, you just lose the person. You lose your sense of self, being of self along with them, because they had become part of your whole identity. Trap number 3 is living in the identity of who you are going to be instead of who you are right now. Some people spend so much time in the story of their future self that they never really actually commit to who they are today. This isn't really me. The real me is who I will be. Your identity doesn't have to include who you are right now, not just the version you are working towards. And trap 4, refusing to update your identity as you grow. It's actually the opposite problem. Some people hold so tightly to an old version of themselves that they won't even allow change. I'm just not a confident person. I've always been like this. Some of those things have been true at some point in your life, but you're actually allowed to become someone different. Growth is not a betrayal of your past self, it's what your past self was always working towards. And next thing is the verse that actually reframed this for me from the Bible. Okay, so here's something I want to bring in here because it genuinely shifted how I see all of this as a bigger picture. If you take a step back, in Psalm 139, verse 14, it says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Now, if you grew up in a church, you probably seen that on a mug or a wall print. It can feel like it's lost some of its weight from overuse, because here it again, in the context of everything we've been talking about, it's, I would say, like, fearfully and wonderfully made doesn't mean it's perfectly finished. It means it's intentional, specifically, carefully constructed on purpose, with thought and with intention. And what I keep coming back to is that actually includes the version of you that is actually still in the middle, the confused version, the one that doesn't have everything figured out yet, the one that's still asking, who am I at 24, 26, or 28? That version wasn't a mistake. That version isn't a rough draft of what was supposed to be done by now. The confusion of your 20s isn't evidence that something is wrong. It's actually the evidence that, like, you're in the middle of a process that started on purpose and is still going. The becoming is actually the point, the slow, messy, sometimes uncomfortable growing into yourself. That is the plan and not the obstacle. So to end it, we are saying you are not behind his timeline, you are actually in it. And the next thing is 3 things that you can actually do to find your identity. So here are 3 practical things. So let's go with the first one. First one is journal without any audience. It's not for anyone to read, not even for your future self, just raw, honest. Nobody will ever see these thoughts. What you actually want, what actually scares you, what lights you up when nobody else is watching. You probably know more about yourself than you've ever actually written down. Try it without performing it, because nobody's gonna be there to, like, see it. It's just what you're writing down for yourself. And the second one is make decisions from your values, not your aesthetics. A lot of us are building identity around a vibe, the kind of person we want to look like. That's not the same as knowing who you actually are. So write down what you genuinely value, not what you want to be seen as, and what you actually care about when the lights are off and nobody's there to actually see anything that you're doing. And use those answers to make decisions that are much more stable foundation than you building your life around a certain aesthetic. And the third one is give yourself a longer timeline. Seriously, stop measuring yourself in months. Stop acting like you should be a finished person at 22, 25, or 28. The most grounded, self-aware people you know didn't figure it out quickly. They gave themselves permission to keep figuring out everything slowly without panicking about how long it was going to take. You're not supposed to be done. You are a person, not a project with a deadline. So to finish off with everything that we've been saying in this episode, identity in your 20s is actually not a problem for you to solve. It's a process you have to actually live through. And the more patient and honest you are with yourself while you are in it, the more you actually come out on the other side, knowing yourself in a way that's real and yours. If today you feel more confused than when you started listening, honestly, that's a good sign because confusion means you're taking it seriously. The actual work is about to start, and for the next episode, we're gonna be getting into friendships, the friendship audit. Which people in your circle are actually growing you, which ones are draining you, and how to navigate all of that with grace instead of actual drama. So, I'm your host. This is the Cause and Code Show. And if this one resonated with you, share it with someone who you think might need to hear it today. And that's the end of it. Stay cozy.